Welcome to the Writer Reads The Reptiles Blade, Part 6. Mika faded from view, and Felix sighed. He stayed blended as she asked, and they ate dinner, but she still could not see him, so he contented himself with sliding in and out of sight as he sat opposite her. Where are you staying? Felix asked, and Mika was affronted. With you, of course, he said. We have shared both cup and flask. Of course, Felix said, and wished she knew enough of lizardine culture to understand the significance of what he said. Sleep, Mika said after they'd cleared the dishes. I will explain what you have done in the morning. In the morning we have to return to headquarters, Felix said. I hope I found the sword by then. So do I, Mika said, and there was a dangerous gravity to his voice that Felix was too tired to pursue. They slept, sharing the bed, but nothing more. Tell me what you know about nanites. Mika woke Felix with an order. They're little bits of gadgetry used in medicine and other things. We use them in war, Mika said. Felix froze and rolled onto her back. Beside her, Mika mirrored her action. They both gasped at the same time. What Felix saw above them drove all thoughts of nanite war out of her head. You told me you hid it in the office, Mika said. Felix didn't know how to reply. Last she had recalled, she had been in the office with the door closed and locked before the flashback hit. No way did she recall coming in here and fixing the elder's sword to the ceiling above her bed. Where did that idea come from? She wondered. And why can I see it now when I couldn't see it before? Blend for me, she said, turning to Mika. Please, Mika, she added when he remained where he was, just as visible. Please what? He asked. Please, blend for me. I have to check something. But I have. I am. It took all night. He never said it would take all night, Felix murmured. She swung her feet over the side of the bed and stood up, twitching her tail for balance. Ah, Felix. But she was gone, hurrying into the ensuite and slamming the door behind her. When she was alone, Felix sank to the tiled floor and rested her head between her knees. The elder's words echoed in her mind. The change is permanent. And nanites. Mercy brings obligation. I will give you the means to save yours. Felix reached behind herself, felt where the tail merged with her spine, and realized she was naked. The lizardine absorbed their clothes when they needed skin to air. Felix wondered if it worked in reverse. Found herself dressed in what she'd gone to sleep in, reached back, and felt no tail. What in hell had they done to her? What in hell had that lizardine bastard done? Felix? The ensuite door cracked open. I'm sorry, Captain, but we have no more time. Felix raised her head, pushed slowly to her feet. Mika's face looked as compassionate as she'd ever seen it. He held out his hand. The elders have contacted your command. Is this why you needed the sword? Mika nodded. You can shift between blend sight and normal, he said. Are you in blend now? No. He shimmered, went transparent, and ghosted out of sight. Felix focused on seeing him in blend and made him come back into view. She also shrieked and dived for the sidearm she kept on her bedside table. Or she would have if Mika hadn't wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her to his side. She was naked again, and the tail had reappeared. We have company, she gasped. I know. My Sesket. Those whose lives are intertwined with mine. You need to change back. Stop trying to see them. They will be there. Is this going to happen every time? He glanced down. No, you'll get the hang of it, he said. For now, just focus on being human. Your command requires it, and the elders don't need any more ammunition than they have. What do you mean by ammunition? The elders found a way to stop the war, and they will be asking compensation for humanity's aggression. They will also see you as their property, due to their interference in your creation. I'm sorry, but that will be something else requiring negotiation. For now, we must focus on the nature of our peace. Unfortunately, under intergalactic law, your race will be paying for a very long time. Felix shrugged. It was no more than they deserved. They had thought the lizardine primitive and undeveloped, their mineral rich world easy prey. The first blend suited attack squad, armed with flechettes, stunners, and force nets, had come as a surprise. Is there much room for negotiation? The sword. Mika lifted his hand to show he still held it. Is there anything left in the flask? There was, and the sword snapped into normal view when Mika had smeared it with the remnants of the draught. Felix was glad they hadn't drunk it all. Not even the lizardine elders would have been able to see it, hidden by blend. I'll call a cab, Felix said. Please forgive me, Captain, but I have already summoned your assistant, and he will fetch us by car. It is safer that way. And quicker, Felix managed once she'd overcome her surprise. How did Carlyle take the news? He said he was wondering when I'd show myself and offered to eviscerate me 9 ways to sunrise should you be harmed. That I have compromised you to such a degree is of some concern to him. The same level of concern was not apparent in Mika's expression. I will have to retire when the negotiations are done, Felix said. I would like to keep Carlyle, if he'll stay. Mika looked at her. We will see. Ma'am, Carlyle greeted her with a look of reproach and raised eyebrows. Then they took the tea set to the labs. Thank you, Carlyle. They said nothing else on the journey into headquarters, although Carlyle caught her eye as he drove carefully through the crowd of reporters gathering outside their building. He avoided the throng by taking them into the private parking beneath headquarters and up to the reception via the lift. Somehow, security had managed to corral the journalists beyond the front doors. Good to see you, ma'am, one called, then registered who she was as the cameras began to flash. Felix glanced up at Mika and saw why. He had shifted into ceremonial dress and patterned his scales with the colours of authority. A sudden presence at her back had the cameras flashing double time, and Felix guessed Mika's escort had chosen to show themselves. She noted the apparent absence of lizardine weaponry, then glanced across at the security officers and raised a hand. Stand down, officers, she said. Councillor Michaleska Kotovor is here by invitation. Or he would be, just as soon as she introduced him to command. The guards hesitated, and Felix could not blame them. Her first sight of 8-foot tall lizardine warriors in full battle armour had been enough to make her pause too. You should verify both my and Lieutenant Carlyle's identities, she said when the security officers continued to hesitate. I also believe the councillor and his escort require visitors' passes. Manoeuvring Mika and his bodyguards through the bureaucracy of entering a secure facility, Felix was glad of Carlyle's assistance. Between the two of them, they were able to usher their guests into the elevator to the conference room as the first reporter started rapping on the glass. The commanders were waiting, and the conference room screens showed that almost every planetary power had linked in. Felix counted the heads of several corporations recognized as sovereignties, as well as members of the conglomerate councils of the 3 current world powers. She also recognized the oldest face on the Lizardine ruling council amidst his cohorts, and several of the powers on the Intergalactic Authority representative panel. Humanity was in it, but deep. Felix resisted the urge to entwine her fingers in Mika's hand as they stepped into the room, pausing instead to announce his arrival. Good. Then now we're in session, stated the Intergalactic Authority speaker. Felix kept the grimace from her face. Di Peachy was not her favourite sentient. Humanoid in shape, but having the eye rows and extra limbs to show her arachnid ancestry, Di made most humans uneasy. One of the Lizardine councillors licked his lips, as though seeing the arachnid reminded him of lunch. It was a gesture Di ignored as she indicated the Lizardine council should speak. We're broadcasting this on every station in your civilization. As an opening statement, it was a showstopper, leaving the current Earth High Minister gaping. The Lizardine councillor gave him no time to intervene. This is legal when the decisions made in court affect every member of a particular race. We, of the planet you have called Aquapearl, order every member of humanity to surrender. As you represent them, that decision is yours." Outside, Felix knew people were shouting. "We do so with the weight of the intergalactic authority behind us, for humanity has transgressed the most basic of its rules.